A Jedi is dead, Monty, and everyone's just nobody cares. I don't care either, but the
I mean, it's
characters should
amazing.
care.
This week on Nerd Legion, we are returning to the horrible quagmire of Star Wars and the incredible dumpster fire that it has become. And nothing, DoA, exemplifies this better than The Acolyte, the newest Star Wars show. And I will say, DoA, I was excited about this show. You know why I was excited? Because I thought going into the past, abandoning the tired tropes and storylines of the Skywalker saga. Finally, they would be freed from all constraints to make something unique and cool in the Star Wars universe, because you could do absolutely anything with this time period. And what they decided to do was make garbage.
I feel very sad because I don't get my hopes up anymore, but I never want to say I get my hopes up about any of these shows, but I just want to have something to be positive about. And we weren't doing this show when Andor was out, so we didn't get to talk about the only truly great Star Wars show that has been made yet. Maybe Andor season 2 will allow us to do that later this year. Fingers crossed, right? But The Acolyte, first of all, I feel slightly misled because they were telling us it was High Republic era, but it's like only about 100 years before the OT and all that. So that's not really like the High Republic era. Like if I am correct in my lore, the books and things that have come out are like more like 300 years, 400 years before.
I think technically some of these characters are part of the High Republic, like young adult book series and comics.
None of the characters in this are
Vernestra
connected to any of that stuff.
The green Jedi is.
Is she?
Yes.
Oh well, whatever. I read the first book of that series, and I actually really liked it because it starts with like a really crazy, awesome like hyperspace disaster that sort of colors the rest of the things that happen in a really unique way. So when I heard it was High Republic era, I was like, okay, we're gonna get to, do really, cool things. Are we gonna be, connected to the hyperlight beacon stuff, the great hyperspace disaster? Like, there's all sorts of neat things in that era you can connect to. New stories like you're talking about, and this decided to do none of that. And so right off the bat, I'm like, oh, okay, all right. But I mean, we've watched the first 3 episodes. That's how much is out as we record this on 6/12, the year of our Yoda 2024, who, probably won't appear in this show if they're really, moving away from everything with that. But I will say this, because the thing that's the most frustrating to me overall about The Acolyte so far is that I feel like the seeds of a good story are there, and they, instead of like they planted these seeds, and they're good seeds, they're healthy seeds, but then they watered them with like toxic waste, and this monstrosity grew where there should have been a beautiful fruiting tree, right? And that's what's the worst part, is I didn't want the abomination. I wanted the beautiful, pure tree that could have grown from that seed, So that's the most frustrating thing for me, because I do think there is an interesting story underneath all of this. I think the concept is okay. I think the execution is quite lacking in a lot of ways, which we will get into in depth. So buckle up. Buckle up, TikTok. Here we go.
This is where our TikToks get absolutely railed by Star Wars fans, which is the funniest stuff.
We got to find a way to upset the Rebels fans again, because they're the most easy to upset, Yeah.
All right. So DoA, I'm curious. What do you think is a good story here that is worth saving or could be saved? What elements of it? Let's start there.
I think you have to look at the very basic premise, right? Mm-hmm. Where and you take away everything you've seen in the 3 episodes, and you only go with what was given to us as the premise, where the Jedi are at the peak of their power, and somebody's out there killing Jedi systematically. That is an interesting concept. because you approach it from a mysterious POV. We don't know who's doing it. We don't know
So what you're
how they're
saying is
doing it. We
this is
don't
a
know.
Star Wars police procedural, which is
Right. It's
fine.
like, yeah, it could be like a mystery kind of thriller thing, right? Like, and it doesn't even need to be connected to the Sith or even necessarily connected to the dark side. It can just be people that have found a good method to kill Jedi, right? And that's a big thing in this universe, you know? Sure, Jedi die now and then, but like during the High Republic when the Jedi are supposed to be, again, at the peak of their power, that sounds like an intriguing thing. And yeah, you do approach it from that kind of perspective you're talking about. I thought maybe that's what we were going to get. Instead, I don't know how the show can be really billed as a mystery, which I see that word associated with this show a lot, including in like the IMDb like description even. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I've seen other descriptions where it's like I don't see it on IMDb at the moment, but it's like, it's billed as like mystery, action, all that. I'm like, there's no mystery. They tell you everything they tell you all of the backstory and all of the character motivations in the first 3 episodes. And you have this kind of like the guy in the mask who's standing on a rock looking wistfully out at the ocean in an episode, but he just kind of says crazy things and no one really understands him and or her. I don't know who knows who it is. That's the only real mystery right now. But that character is positioned as a very unimportant character because we're so dialed in on the relationship between the twins. So it's like you've taken the only possible element of mystery and you've made it so uninteresting to be almost discardable. Like, who cares, right? We care more about the twins and their relationship, So the concept could be very cool.
Do we care?
But we should care, right? But I'm more saying what they're telling us we should be caring about, right? This is I'm speaking from the perspective of what they are presenting to us, what we as a viewer should be caring about, which is clearly, the relationship between May and Osha. Shout out to naming your character working in dangerous environments, Osha. Yeah, clever one there. Also, shout out to saying you wrote a Jedi Master character with Lee Jung-Jae in mind the entire time, and then you named him Master Soul. There you go. Way to name the Korean guy Master Soul. Very subtle, very subtle. So there's things, but by the way, he's my favorite part of the show. I think he's actually
the best part for sure.
I think because he's a very legitimately good actor. He said he took a lot of inspiration from Qui-Gon Jinn for his character, and it shows. And Qui-Gon, I know you have opinions about Qui-Gon.
The most boring character in Star Wars. I mean, look, what I like about his character is that
like Qui-Gon Jinn.
At least Master Soul is attempting to, like, there is a battle going on but inside of him between caring for Osha and May and his duty as a Jedi, and I think he portrays that in terms of his acting ability quite well.
There is nothing back there. You'll be safe on Coruscant. And if you wish, you'll train as my Padawan.
But he's still a boring character. But he is the best part of this show because the rest of it is just fucking terrible.
He is. Well, hold on. I wrote this in my notes. My very first note is talk about positives first. So let's do this because obviously, spoiler alert, we have a lot of not so positive things to say about this show. But I'm gonna try to be more positive this episode, right? And so I'm gonna start off talking about the 3 actors that I like in this show that I think do pretty good. The first is, like I mentioned before, Jung-Jae, who, in case you are unaware, was the main character in Squid Game. Great Korean actor. Glad to see him pop up in this. Apparently, he learned English for this role, which is kind of shocking. I mean, being a big time actor, there's obviously a lot of reasons to learn English if you want to expand beyond Korean shows, especially if you're in the Netflix ecosystem now, right? So, I'm sure he had a lot of motivation to do it anyway. But yeah, there's interviews where he says, he was practicing very hard to the point where, here comes the suffering, his mouth was so tired from just pronouncing English all day, and he dreamed about English and things. But he does a great job. He sounds, I would say, fairly natural in the show. And so that's cool, that he was able to do that for the show because he's a great actor. So nice to see him put himself in a position to appear in more things, because I think he should. The second actor that I like in this series is Amandla Stenberg, who plays May and who plays Osha.
Dude,
I
she
do.
is so bad.
No, I think she's
She
doing a
is
good job
so
playing multiple
bad.
characters.
Oh,
I disagree.
God.
I disagree.
Oh,
I think she's doing a fine job.
Terrible take, though. She is so bad. She is so fucking bad. And part
What
of
about
this
the
is
child actors?
Also terrible. Also super bad. They're all terrible, Doa. And
Okay.
like this whole like
Did I even
place that's
bother
win
naming
things.
the third one?
Look, I think Carrie Ann Moss is
I will.
okay.
Well, I mean, she's by default she's a good actor, but she's not really in much of the series. Which, sidebar on Carrie Ann Moss for a moment here. If you were surprised that she died in the first 5 minutes of the show, you didn't watch the trailer very closely. If you had, you would have noticed, like anyone I think who had watched the trailer fairly closely, that she only appeared in one environment in the entire trailer, and then the entire rest of the trailer is about how someone's killing Jedi. Like, it was very obvious in the trailer that she was going to die immediately in the series. So if you're surprised by this and upset that you didn't get more Trinity from the Matrix in your Star Wars show, I don't know what to tell you. They made it very obvious. That's on you. But obviously she's a good actor, but I don't include her because that's a given, right? I think it's a given that she'll do a good job in this. The third one, you're going to hate this, I'm pretty sure. Charlie Barnett as Yord Fandar, because maybe, I like his portrayal of the character, and I just like that character as well, that he's kind of just like stuck up.
Just a boring character.
Sure, but I like a Jedi that's like way overly hung up on all the Jedi precepts, where like a lot of, and I think this is a good point in the show, where a lot of Star Wars is about, oh well, the Jedi maybe they're not correct in all the things they think. Maybe we should push back against different things the Jedi Order is putting out there. And Yord is just the complete opposite of that entire thought process, where he's just like, I have the entire rule book memorized down to the letter, and I will quote it to you constantly. And I love the scene where they walk in and he's like steaming his Jedi robes and stuff like that, because he's like so obsessive about being the perfect Jedi, apparently. So I like that character.
Master Soul, I thank you for choosing me for this mission. I should have brought Osha in myself. I apologize for my error.
We leave in 5 minutes.
I will redeem myself.
So I think Charlie Barnett,
he's fine.
who portrays him, does a good job too. There you go.
I can't believe you liked Amandla Stenberg, Doa.
Maybe my bars
playing,
are set lower these days with
as
Star
far
Wars,
as playing twins goes, she doesn't even do a good job of playing the differences between the twins. And in fact, the only other worse one actor twin performance that I've seen was Leonardo DiCaprio in The Man in the Iron Mask, who managed to fucking ruin what would have been a very good movie otherwise. But he basically single-handedly turns that movie into trash by being so bad. Like, what's so funny about that movie too is that he plays the king, right? And he's so bad at playing just the one role, and then they introduce him where he has to act with himself as a twin, and it is just god awful. This was the period of Leonardo DiCaprio's career where what's interesting about him was, like, if you watch him when he was a kid and like What's Eating Gilbert Grape, he's really good. Then he sucks for like a long time in his 20s, and then all of a sudden with Catch Me If You Can, he gets good again. Who knows why he couldn't act for like a 10-year period, but there it was.
That movie has a special place in my heart because it was a movie I went and saw on a disastrous first date in high school. So I won't share all the details with that.
Why not?
Because there wasn't really a lot to talk about. We went and saw the movie, and she hated me, and that was about it.
By the way, she
wasn't into the Star Wars card game like I was. She's not. I bet wherever she is, and I wish her the best, she doesn't have multiple Decipher Star Wars card games in hard sleeves on her desk, just randomly sitting there.
Her loss, Doa. Her loss.
That's why it didn't work out. I know.
How could she give up on a catch like you?
Things worked out. Things worked out in the end. But that movie has a special place in my heart for that awkward.
Maybe things didn't work out for her, Doa. You don't know.
I hope they do. I hope it worked out for her.
Worked out for you, and that's what matters. But The Man in the Iron Mask. Yeah. Leonardo DiCaprio being incapable of acting in that movie actually ruins a movie where his co-stars are Jeremy Irons, John Malkovich, Gerard Depardieu, and Gabriel Byrne, who are playing the Musketeers. And that could have been a fucking great movie with that cast. That could have been amazing. The Man in the Iron Mask is a great story. No bias, the guy says, who's named Monte Cristo.
I was going to say, how do you feel about the Parent Trap? Speaking of people playing twins.
I actually feel really good about the Parent Trap. I think it's cute.
Jackie Chan played twins in Twin Dragons in 1992. I'm going through a list of people who played twins. I haven't seen some of these.
So I will say about the Amandla Stenberg, this is another Anna Sawai moment where the writing is just so terrible that it may not be her fault, but she is really bad in this role, in the same way that Anna Sawai was really bad in Monarch Legacy of Monsters. Like, this is a terrible performance. There is no real differentiation between the twins. The twins, look, but the dialogue between the twins, yeah, it's bad. It's
well,
bad.
the dialogue across the board in the show is abysmal. Let's just put that out there. That's not on the actors. That's the writing. But so the dialogue, they are struggling with having to read this dialogue for sure.
You really think I'm capable of betraying the Order, overpowering a Jedi Master, and murdering her?
When I see her, that's her. She killed the Jedi.
But I do think Amanda Stenberg does a good job with it. I especially like May is kind of one note, but I feel like I'm hoping that's because the villain just hasn't been developed as much yet because we're only episode 3. Who knows? Osha I do like as sort of this like Jedi dropout who's kind of just making her way through the universe. I think it's a cool character. There are, like I said, there are things about this show that I do like, and I will say I do like this show more than Book of Boba Fett. Which I still consider Book of Boba Fett as like the ultimate low bar in Star Wars television.
I mean, this is horrible.
And the Star Wars Holiday Special exists as well. That aired on television.
This is worse than the Star Wars Holiday Special. There are redeeming qualities to the Star Wars Holiday Special purely for like the thing though is that
but not because it's good. It's fun.
I would rather have it be a cult classic, unintentionally hilarious piece of garbage than this. Because let's be very clear, there is nothing entertaining about The Acolyte. It is horrendously boring. Nothing actually happens. You don't actually care about any of the characters because here's another show, Doa, that just throws us into the middle of a plot line and says in the first 5 minutes of the show, you totally should care about Carrie Ann Moss's Jedi Master character dying.
Yeah. Are you in agreement with me where why wasn't episode 3 the first episode?
Yes, of course.
Because, and it goes back to this whole mistake of positioning this show as a mystery, because it's not a mystery. It's not written as a mystery. There's really nothing mysterious about it. It's a story about like the twins and their relationship with the Jedi and their witch coven that they were a part of and all that. And like all of that stuff that would make us care about the characters that died in the first 2 episodes. All that stuff happens in episode 3 in this big flashback episode. So I'm watching this episode and I'm like, all right, great. You're explaining all this. But so one, you're just kind of like giving away whatever mystery, still existed with the characters' backstories already in the 3rd episode. I think there's only 6, but why? So if you're giving this all away in the first 3 episodes, why not just put the 3rd episode at the beginning and then have more of a normal development of characters and why we should care about them? So it's just odd. It's just odd and it's wrong. And it just makes for a worse show by a lot, and this, like I said, this is what frustrates me because again, I think there's elements of this story that I like, but it's just presented in such a way that feels out of order because of what we just said. And there's so many like little plot hole oddity kind of things. Like an example I'm thinking up is where we have Jedi saying multiple times permission to speak freely, like it's the U.S. Marines or something like that. It's like it's a Jedi Order, man. They're not a military organization.
Permission to speak freely, Master Sol?
You may.
Why do you keep old hollows of your former Padawan? This pastime encourages sentimentality and nostalgia, and both of these emotions can lead to...
Our memories are lessons.
Like, sure, during the Clone Wars, you had them generals and things like that, but outside of a large scale military conflict situation in which the Jedis are essentially conscripted to be soldiers, the Jedi Order is more. You've got masters and students, and you've got a council.
It's a religious order.
Yeah, and we've never seen very, very strict rules of interaction between master and student. Usually they're kind of joking around. There's definitely a level of respect that's shown for the master, from the Padawan, but it seems fairly loose. It's much less rigid than a military structure, right?
Well, also,
so
it really does.
That weird,
the Jedi Order, they do have rules, right? And they do have
Of course.
doctrines. But the thing about it is that
it's more like a religion, though.
Yeah, knights and masters are given a lot of independent room, which is to operate in their own way, which is why there's such a difference in different Jedi's relationships with the people that they're training. And like, this is an accepted part of the order. Like, some people are very different and they've got their own techniques, and like, that's those relationships and the differences in that is what makes fucking Jedi interesting. If it was just a rigid hierarchy, then the Jedi cease to become interesting.
Right, but so that's not the main problem, though, is that they're saying things like permission to speak freely, but then nothing else around them reflects that sort of military structure, right? And that phrase is such an extreme U.S. military phrase that it just sounds very jarring in Star Wars. So stuff like that. I've got a whole list, man.
One of the other things about this show, DoA, is that the use of language and dialogue is very in your example military, but they also just use modern corporate talk for no reason. So there is, when Master Soul is basically reporting in to, I guess, his boss, which is Vernestra, the Green Jedi Master. She literally says in this piece of dialogue where he's like, why can't we go pursue May? We know where she's going. Because remember, they know who she's trying to kill. And this is very similar. We'll get into the absurdity of this in a second. But just the dialogue of this is so crazy because the Green Jedi Vernestra just says, we are discussing next steps, which is a corporate phrase that has only existed maybe in the last 5 years, and it feels so out of place with the tone of the Star Wars universe. All you have to do is write that piece of dialogue without modern corporate jargon, and you just said, we're discussing the proper course of action. That's it. Why is it we are discussing? Who wrote we are discussing next steps and was like, nailed this piece of Star Wars dialogue? It's like, no.
I have convened a small council to discuss next steps. We are awaiting your arrival.
With respect, we don't have time for talks, Master Vanestra.
Our problem has changed.
And it goes through that for the entire show, basically, where and that's why I say this dialogue is so difficult, because you're trying to put these people in a space opera situation, but you're having them read dialogue that sounds very modern and very corporate America, like you're saying. Yeah, exactly. So it just doesn't make sense, and you can't tell me that you can't tell me that the old Star Wars, that's how they talked in the 70s. Like, maybe there's a little bit in that, but they were trying to make the characters sound like they were in a place that wasn't, like
timeless.
Los Angeles, or timeless. Yeah, exactly. So that right off the bat, the dialogue, I think, really hurts the show.
I also think I need to have them abolish all long-range holographic communications with authorities within the Star Wars universe, because Ahsoka did this too. Because remember, they were like asking permission to pursue people in Ahsoka. Oh yeah, and they were like, "Nah, you can't do that. That's against the rules." And now we're here. She's like, "Well, we have to decide what to do." It's like, what the fuck decision is there going to be? There is literally a Force serial killer going around murdering Jedi Masters. This isn't a fucking discussion. You know where this person is going. It's like, well, we have to talk about this. It's like, no, you actually have somebody who's hot on their trail, who knows exactly where they're going to go, who could prevent another murder. You're like, we need to talk about this.
Well,
it's like, what?
Let's talk about more dialogue problems, right? Where this show right off the bat gets into a lot of tell don't show as well, where they're doing the little interrogation of Osha with Yord and his Padawan. By the way, when they go off on their mission to find May, where did Yord's Padawan go? She just kind of vanished. She was there for one scene, and then he was just like, "Ah, find a new master. I'm going off with Master Soul. See ya, goodbye." So during that interrogation scene, by the way, they were like talking about Osha, and they're like, "Oh, your whole family was killed in that fire and all that kind of stuff." It's like, don't just tell us that. And like, why are you telling her that? I'm pretty sure she's aware. Have her have some sort of reaction that like gives us this information. Like, let this be a character moment, right?
You lost your entire family. Your mothers, your sister, your village all died in the fire before Master Soul brought you into the Jedi. Your training was difficult, to say the least.
So you don't let characters have character building moments where they're either revealing part of their own backstory because of the context, you know? You're just having somebody else tell them their own backstory, but they're really just telling us so we know. And speaking of character building moments, when you have your character that's supposedly like this, she wasn't a great Jedi, but she's a great mechanic. So you put her on a ship that's crashing out of orbit. Great. That sounds like an awesome moment for your cool, adaptable, witty mechanic character to do some cool thing to save the day. No, instead, she just buckles up and doesn't die. I mean, like, how lazy can you possibly be in your writing to make that the solution? Like, oh, we could make our character do a really cool thing that, like, makes her unique and shows us that she has skills, even though she's a Jedi Order flunky, but she still, you know, she has these other skills and she's made her own way in the universe and she is talented. It's like, nope, just buckle up and then we'll show, by the way, this one thing's leading to another here. So then that was bad. We're missing out on a lot of character building moments because of things like that in the series, which would have helped. And why is the ship CG so bad in this series? Like it's notably worse than other Star Wars shows, and I don't know why. Was it a budget thing? Like, what's going on?
They spent $180 million on this show, and it looks like shit. And
that is more than was spent on Furiosa, as we were talking about a couple weeks ago, because that was 100.
Dune 2 cost $190 million. This cost $22 million per episode. Because remember, there's only 8 episodes, right?
Yeah.
So, and also each of these episodes it's 8. And each of these 8 episodes is like 35 minutes long. So remember, Dune 2 is a movie that is over 3 hours long.
8 episodes. Yeah.
And so we are talking here about 4 to maybe 5 hours of content that is $10 million cheaper than Dune 2. And Dune 2 looks 1,000x better than this show.
Well, it turns out if you know how to light things properly and shoot them, instead of light them in the flattest way possible in every single scene, and you actually do, you know, like, I don't know, film-esque cinematography, use interesting camera angles, things like that, instead of just, again, the flattest, hey, this is television way of shooting every scene, you probably have a better result then. I don't know. I'm no expert, but you know, I feel like I look at something like this, and even if I feel like you really should compare the show a lot to Ahsoka. And Ahsoka had its flaws, but overall I did like it. And it felt very Star Wars. It looked very Star Wars.
That's true.
The lighting was good. The cinematography was great in that show. And this show just falls so flat in like every regard. And again, this goes back to my main overall point with the show is seeds of a good story. Everything else is executed extremely poorly. And we can go on. Like, why did Osha have to wake up gasping 3 times in the first episode? Was that supposed to be funny? Was that like a joke or something? Like, what's going on?
I love that this is one of those things, because remember how I complained about Ahsoka that nothing actually happens? Nothing happens in this show, Noah. Nothing happens.
Oh, no. Things happen. They just don't make sense. Like, hey, we think we caught the person who's been murdering Jedi, something that no one should really be able to do. I think she'll be fine on a prison ship manned by droids. And the thing is on that ship, it wasn't even the Jedi they needed to worry about. It was every other prisoner who apparently all had the abilities independently to break out any time they wanted. It seems like these prison ships run by droids are just a bad idea.
But that's what I'm saying.
by
Nothing
Republic.
happens. There was no point to that scene because it's just a Deus Ex Machina where one guy just like the cyborg just like mind hacks the droids, and then Tongue
Things
Guy
happen.
just
They're
just
just
gets
dumb
an
things.
arm to. So, but I mean, there was no point to that entire sequence. Do we go
Yeah.
back to that storyline? No, it's like she was falsely arrested, and here we go. Now it's just a droid prison ship, which is also just an irresponsible way to transfer somebody can use the Force and who is capable of killing Jedi
When
Masters.
they had that one droid, like the droid guard take away, I'm like, are you serious? Like this is the person you think has been killing droids. You think killed like one of the very arguably powerful Jedi Master just days ago, and you're trusting one droid. Like, have you seen what Jedi can do to droids? I guess you haven't because the Clone Wars haven't happened yet. But like, man, droids don't fare very well against Jedi in a lot of situations. So I don't understand why you would do that. That leads into the crash scene, which doesn't make any sense.
I also loved how the crash scene,
many.
I don't even understand what half of the point of that was, because the guy with the face sucker on him just immediately betrays her and she crashes anyway. Here's an idea, Doa.
I kind of like that moment that
Oh,
he just gets
God.
up and leaves her and jumps out the escape pod. I kind of like that
Fuck
because
off.
then it was because then I because they told her that he was violent and crazy, and then he immediately did something violent and crazy. I'm like, well, yeah, I like that they finally followed through with that. A lot of shows wouldn't do that, where they'd be like, "Oh, I'm actually a good person,"
But here,
we
but
didn't fall
Doa,
for
we
that.
didn't need
Yeah.
that. It doesn't go anywhere. The only place it goes
Well, that's
is,
the problem, right?
Is for Soul to like basically mind control him for 0.2 seconds to
I
give him
know.
information.
And my point is that him running off and using the last escape pod could have led to that cool character moment, but it didn't. So
well, but
it was
it's
like,
let
set
me-
up
let me
and
just-
no
let-
payoff. Set
Let me
up,
just
no
pretend
payoff.
here.
I sensed the darkness. Beware.
Quiet your mind and tell me what happened to the young woman.
She helped me, and I betrayed her and took the last escape pod.
You could have just deleted that entire sequence, have there been one escape pod,
yeah.
and then interrogated one of the other prisoners. It's just like we don't need any of this extraneous stuff. And it just bloats this show so much because there's so many just unnecessary scenes in this show that don't really advance the plot in any kind of meaningful way and could be easily cut out or streamlined. They serve no purpose. Like you say, they don't advance the character. We don't learn anything about OSHA because of the crash. We don't. We learn nothing. And I think your idea is great. Like, why couldn't we have this cool mechanic do something as a mechanic to actually build her character and make us like her and think she's cool?
What if her and Pip, like her Swiss Army knife droid, what if her and Pip were able to like get the ship, controllable to the point where it still crashes, but they're able to like soften the blow just enough to make it through, and you see this cool character moment again, but we didn't get that. There's just a laundry list, to use a corporate term, of just weird, nonsensical, bad things in the show, like Corbin's beard. If he's been floating there for 10 years, not talking to anyone, just kind of in a trance, who's been grooming him? who's
been in the bathroom?
Because he has a beard. Well, I mean, I'm not worried about that stuff. The Force is holding his pee, but but we're shown that his facial hair is apparently still growing.
So Torben also, his makeup is
beard.
one of the worst things I've ever seen.
The beard looks very fake, and it made me laugh the first time I saw it. It looks like when Ron Burgundy is in that scene where he's been kicked out of the news thing and he's walking along the street drinking milk. It's like that level of fake beard. That was done in a comedy movie for comedy. This was supposed to be a serious movie where the person with the silly beard ends up committing suicide about 10 minutes later. So
I need to talk about this whole sequence, by the way, because
Go
remember,
ahead. I got a lot to say too.
Basically, everything about the Torben scene is like, in a nutshell, what is wrong with this show? So first off, we don't care about this guy or know what he's done.
No,
we have no
idea
context
who he
for
is.
him. Some genius I will say this. I liked the fight scene with Carrie-Anne Moss. I thought it was cool to watch.
The fight choreography in the show is actually good.
Yeah.
With May versus Andara, and then May versus Soul. Yeah, actually the fight choreography in the show has been very good so far. So that is, I did have that down as a high point. Yeah.
Even though you cannot escape the fact that when you watch Carrie-Anne Moss doing that, you just feel like you're watching The Matrix in Jedi robes, which is weird. And I don't know if you
sure there's that, but that is not as much the show's fault as just being unable to associate Carrie-Anne Moss with anything but The Matrix. You could say that's an issue with casting. I would say
it's an issue with casting. It's also an issue with choreography because it is highly derivative. It's like it is The Matrix. Okay, it is The Matrix. What we're watching her do.
It seems like it was really forced into being a hand-to-hand combat scene. Because as the bad Jedi told us, steel doesn't work against Jedi, but Master Andara didn't get that memo because she died to a steel knife in the heart. Yeah. So, what's that guy even saying?
I don't want to get distracted.
No,
I don't want to get distracted by this.
Sorry. Go ahead.
The Torben. We need to dig into the Master Torben sequence. So we're
Torben
told
matters.
He has been meditating here for 10 years. And whatever genius wrote this show decided that what would be really exciting is a hand-to-hand fight sequence against a man floating there in an invisible bubble that stops you from doing anything.
I'm gonna really pretend that I'm hitting a force field now. And like, sure, you can act that well. And like, yeah, go to mime school a little while. I mean, that I'm sure you can learn how to do that kind of thing very well. But it always looks silly. That's never going to look good.
The escalation of it is it's like, you could be like, oh, I wonder if I can touch him. And you just stop and you're like, I can't kill this guy this way. But instead, no, we have to start doing jump spin kicks.
I got to flip off the wall and see if I can kick him in the head.
Which is it is funny, but it's not intended to be funny. Like that actually that feels like a Star Wars satire scene in terms of the action. So we have that problem, which is that again, it's an extended sequence that is both boring, meaningless, and not fun to watch. Right? It's just not entertaining. It's not entertaining at all. It's just hilarious and stupid. And so
it's like something out of a kid's show or something.
Yeah. And then so she's like, oh, I can't kill this guy because he's in his little invisible bubble and I can't talk to him. So she goes to her friend to get a poison made.
Hey, he's mysterious. I do wonder about him. He is kind of an interesting, mysterious character. He clearly has combat skills, but he's not a force user. He makes poisons. Like, who is this character? I'm kind of curious a little bit. But anyway, continue.
I mean, he killed the shop owner and took it over and nobody noticed, which is like, how does that
work? But that's another thing I'm talking about, where there's lots of like really stupid things in this show where it's like, yeah, nobody noticed that? Really? I've got another one with the sequence too that I'll tell you in a minute.
Your local pharmacist who you know from down the street is suddenly replaced by a mysterious creepy guy. You just have
very
no questions.
Suspicious looking creepy guy, by the way. Like the way he acts does not really imbue an aura of trust, we'll say.
So nobody in this community actually just cared about that happening or had any questions.
That guy was a jerk. New guy is way better. a little
anyway,
creepy.
Anyway, I want to go back to the Torben thing because you're derailing me again.
We digress. Yeah.
So she goes back and you're like, well, how is she going to get him to drink this poison? That's weird considering he's in his force bubble. Turns out, DoA, that Torben is just entirely willing to kill himself when she's like, here, drink this. And he just commits suicide, but we don't feel anything when he commits suicide because we don't know if he's done anything wrong because we started this series without any background information. So I don't know anything about this character. I don't know if he deserved to commit suicide, but also DoA, if he was going to commit suicide, why didn't he just let her kill him in the first place? Why did we have any of that sequence?
How is drinking the poison any less absolution, as she puts it, than her just stabbing him, right?
Yep.
Him just letting her stab him.
Yep.
I do not
And he
know.
doesn't say anything. He just is like, "Yep, time to die."
He does. He says we thought we were doing the right thing. You know,
God.
that's what he says. And so I think this is one of those things where that's supposed to be, Monty. That's supposed to be a mysterious element in the show. Ooh, what did he do? You know, there must be something. Oh boy. But we kind of had already established that there was something that happened with those Jedi on Brendok that caused it. There was more to the story, you know. So we kind of didn't learn any new information there, you know. And again, because we didn't know anything about this character previously, and he looks goofy and he just floats in the air. We don't feel anything, you know. Whereas like after episode 3, I'm like, oh, okay. So now he was this Padawan who was there. He was injured. He was like traumatized by what he saw, and he decided he just needed to kind of retreat into this, you know, communing with the Force to try to get through it. Like, okay, sure. I'll
here's
accept
the
that,
thing,
but we didn't
Noah,
know any of that.
Why do we start stories? This has been a repeated problem on this show. Why do we start stories in the middle where,
Because
just
it's
like Ninja Kamui,
mystery.
if we had just started at the beginning, we might actually have feelings for the characters, or we might understand it. Like, it doesn't have to be a mystery. We could just be like, wow, that was a really messed up thing that happened, and this guy has like Jedi PTSD as a result of it. But also, like, who would just meditate for 10 years, wait for that person to come back? And by the way, just logically, if you were racked with guilt because she died, why would you kill herself when you saw her alive?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, because a lot of other people died too, maybe, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to think of why.
You had 10 years to kill yourself. Why is this the trigger? But I'm saying is,
I'm
like,
trying to get into the logic of the writers.
Why if you, because obviously seeing somebody who should be dead alive should, to a certain degree, assuage your guilt, right?
Yeah.
To whatever degree. You're like, wow, it sucks. But wow, I sure am glad that all of those people that I thought died hadn't died. But now that I see you're alive, I don't feel better. I'm going to kill myself. Because
Can I talk about my least favorite part of that whole scene, where it was kind of a silly and made me laugh? I'm like, seriously, it was towards the end of that scene. So after Master Torben, I keep wanting to call Master Corbin because of the fifth element, but Master Torben kills himself, drinks some poison, made from a tree on the home planet of the twins. Oh, poetic justice. Or is it? Who knows? Is it poetic? Is it even justice? Who knows? But anyway, I digress again. So Osha is led off from the main party. And let me go through this whole thing, because I know you're going to want to jump in. Let me go through this whole thing, because I anticipate everything. But so they go into the temple to go talk to Master Torben, right? Soul's like, he'll talk to me. And I'm like, yeah, but maybe. Possible. Osha gets called away by the voice of her sister. Firstly, nobody notices. Nobody is bothered by her just wandering off like this. That's okay. All right, we'll let that go. Sure. She wanders to exactly the room Torben's in. You could say she's led there by the Force, blah, 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 whatever. And then finds him dead. And I'm like, oh no. Is this going to be another like false drama moment where they're going to be like, oh, look, she killed Torben. Oh, but Yord is following her. So he'll see too. So it's okay. So I'm thinking like, oh, okay, it's fine. Then we do have that fake drama moment for a second where it's like, lightsabers out. What did you do to Master Torben? And this, like, there's a good 2 minutes of conversation. It's like, no, it wasn't me. I found him like this, honest. And then Yord decides to make his dramatic entrance from the staircase above and says, no, I had eyes on her the whole time. Again, uttering a very 2024 phrase, which grated on my eardrums and brain. But it also immediately made me think, really? You had eyes on her the whole time? Why did it take you so long to show up? Why didn't you both come into the room basically at the same time, and then you rushed ahead to see if Master Torben was okay? Why did you sit back there and wait and watch her examine the body and then wait while she was being accused of murder just to make your dramatic entrance? Like, this scene makes no sense at any stretch. Like, what is going on in this show?
I wonder if that guy's okay. She'll probably figure it out. I don't need to help this man who's collapsed on the floor.
Looks like they're accusing him of murder, and I know she didn't kill him. I'll just wait. I'll wait a little bit. I like the dramatic arrival. Mester Yord is here to dispel the fake drama. I'm like, who writes it this way, right? Like there's so many things like that
It's also
where
it's just like so much
they
of the
can't
screen
seem
time
to-
is just consumed by this utter bullshit.
well, they can't seem to write real gripping drama for the most part. So they need to create little moments of fake drama. And that's what I would qualify as fake drama, where anyone with half a brain cell knows that obviously, if they do accuse her of killing her and that becomes a plot point, that's incredibly stupid. But what's more likely going to happen is what exactly did happen, where you've just got this moment like, oh no, she killed Torben. Oh no, she didn't. Like, why? Why do we even have to have that? Isn't the drama that Torben is dead? Isn't that our main point of drama in this scene? Why do we have to make it about the other characters? A Jedi is dead, Monty, and everyone's just nobody cares. I don't care either, but the characters should care.
And it also just leads into everything else that's hilarious, such as them just letting May escape and Osha not hitting her, not with a real gun, by the way, with a stun gun to capture her.
Wide angle. Now, okay, so I did watch episodes 1 and 2 twice. And I because here's why. Don't interrupt me. Let me tell you why. Because I tend, when I have a visceral, like nauseous, angry reaction to something like this in the Star Wars universe, I always have to go back and watch it again to figure out why, because my initial knee-jerk reaction is never going to be 100% proper. So I actually went and rewatched the first 2 episodes and really thought about it, tried to understand it and all that kind of stuff, because that did bother me the first watch through. The second watch through, I think there's enough indications that she intentionally misses.
Oh, of
now
course she does.
the way it's shot doesn't really show that. The way it's shot makes it look like she's trying to hit her and misses. So it's again shot poorly, but there are some subtle indicators if you watch.
She definitely intentionally misses, right?
So that's okay.
And
I think
she
that's
does
fine.
fire the gun so that people witness her attempting to apprehend her. That's all very clear. But the problem is like, why is she intentionally missing her? Because she's using a stun gun. She's not going to kill her sister, but
That's a very good point.
she knows that her sister just murdered 2 Jedi Masters. Remember, Osha, even though she decided to abandon the Jedi, actually likes the Jedi still. Doesn't have like harbor ill will. Right? Is like
she seems
totally
to trust them
cool.
completely.
Yeah, is totally cool with the Jedi, generally speaking. Seems to, especially Master Soul, definitely has a soft spot for this guy, right? And she's been treated very well by Master Soul. So it's like, well, it wasn't for me, but I'm off doing my own shit now. But it's not like she hates the Jedi and is afraid of what's going to happen. Or that she also wants the Jedi dead because she doesn't think the Jedi did anything wrong. She thinks May was the one who starts the fire. So let me just get this straight.
Yeah.
She thinks May killed her entire family, and May has been secretly alive, not telling her this entire time. Okay. May has now definitively murdered 2 people, and she's not even going to stun her to be like, take this person out. She feels that she like wants her to keep on her murder spree. Again, she's not trying to kill May. She's not trying to kill May. And if May knows something, then why not just get some answers? So not only she has no resolution, she just lets her go off. She doesn't get any information about why May is doing what she's doing. And she also just lets her potentially just go on and continue with killing people. Why would you ever do that?
I would suspect that the writers would tell you, well, she was just so shocked by seeing her sister May that she had this moment of inner conflict and all that, which great. If you wrote it that way, show us,
Yeah, but also just imagine,
just
imagine you literally just came across the body of somebody your sibling murdered, and you walk out and you're like, here's my chance to get some answers or apprehend them to stop them from doing this. And you're like, I will intentionally miss with this non-lethal weapon.
I'm just trying to say, if you wrote it in a certain way, you need to like communicate that. There's a distinct lack of good communication in this show, where I feel like I see what the writers are trying to bring across, but it's just shot so poorly and edited, I think, so poorly in places that we just don't get that. We either miss out on the drama, we miss out on what we're supposed to be getting story-wise from certain characters. In the first couple episodes, there's like weird pacing with the editing where things are overly slow for I guess maybe dramatic purposes, but it just makes the scene feel like kind of bad. Where like, for instance, the very first scene where when Indara dies, Osha's like, oh, not Osha, May is like, oh, I'm gonna throw the dagger at the barkeep, and Dara's like, long pause, no, don't do it. And then she like throws the dagger, long pause, oh, it's floating there, then in the chest. It's like, really? Like, I think any good Jedi Master would have been able to stop that and had time to stop the other one, right? Because you know that's exactly what's going to happen, right?
Well, it's also they can anticipate.
You can do it.
That's the whole thing, is that they anticipate their opponent's movements by reading their minds, right? So
That's
she knows what she's going to do.
Worked, right? But you could have. But the thing is, you could have even shot it in a much better way, where you just do quick cuts, right? Dagger flies, dagger. She lets the dagger go. Then you hear the sound effect. Then you show Indara being like, oh. Like, and so they're like, oh, did you hit the bar? What happened? Who got hit? Then you cut to the dagger floating in front of the barkeep. Then you cut to the dagger in Indara. So it looks like both daggers are thrown almost simultaneously, right? Because then you can make an argument that maybe Indara wouldn't have been able to, stop it. But the way that it was shot was much, much, much slower. Fast forward to episode 2, you've got another very similar situation where in the end, May creates a big dust cloud to escape. The ship is hovering above, everyone's surrounding her. There's this long pause where she just sort of looks at everybody. And then she finally like does it. It's like you could have just had like a fast-paced fight scene into her just doing that suddenly. Because if it's sudden in the way that it's edited, it will seem sudden for the characters that are experiencing it, which will make it more plausible that she could escape in that situation. Instead, you've got this long, drawn-out moment of non-drama where then she does it and you're like, well, there's plenty of time for people to react to that in the way that it was shot and edited. So I think another part of this, the problem with the show is the way that some of those scenes are edited too, because I think they could be done in a snappier way to make the story elements seem more plausible, and to just kind of, make it more exciting and make the action more believable too. So like I said, this show has problems on every single level. It's really astounding, honestly. But
then we can talk about episode 3, which is one of the worst episodes of television I have ever seen. Though, from writing to acting to theme to even concept to place in the Star Wars universe. Because here's the thing, Doa. Let's just start with the concept. Force witches aren't new. They're even in Ahsoka. They put the Dathomiri Night Sisters in Ahsoka. And by the way, if you want other media, all Star Wars media has been going hard on Force witches recently. And if you want to see a cool Force witch, and actually, Star Wars done right in many ways, play, Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. These games have a great Force Witch character called Marin in them that is really cool. And you go to Dathomir in these games, and they talk a lot about the Night Sisters and everything like that. That is very interesting. We don't even know, like, are these from Dathomir? They don't look like it.
I don't think so.
I don't know. They're just a random, like, Force Witch coven that is on their own planet. And
pull the thread.
Pull the thread.
I think things are connected by the same thread. A thread woven through all of existence. Pull the thread, change everything.
And
then the entire story unravels.
So they're there. And of course, guys, this is just so overtly, I will say this about sci-fi. Great sci-fi often takes modern issues and then takes them into a different environment, which allows you as a viewer to potentially re-examine your own belief system, right?
It gives you a level of objectivity when viewing this sort of thing that you don't get in real world trappings.
Right. So it's like you start thinking about modern issues because it's framed through a different lens that kind of kicks you out of any assumptions that you might have, right? Great sci-fi does this all the time. It's one of the things I love most about science fiction.
Star Trek is probably the prime example of this,
yes.
I would say.
But or Battlestar Galactica, right? I mean, if you actually take the reboot of Battlestar Galactica during the kind of Iraq wars and everything that was happened, they did a bunch of stuff that was brilliant in Battlestar about, parallels to Abu Ghraib and the prisoner torture that was, being done by the U.S. troops. And like, there is tons of great stuff in Battlestar. What is not great is the just horrible, framing and themes of this show. So, the twins are the result of a lesbian couple, right? They are in an all-female Force coven that is fleeing because they are being persecuted. Now, we don't see them doing necessarily anything wrong. However, Doa, it is implied by the characters that the twins were made via some dark art that the Jedi are super not going to be happy about.
I carried them.
I created them.
And what happens if the Jedi discover how you created them?
Well, it kind of sounds like I was curious about that from the Force side of things, because we know that the Force can create life, because lore-wise, Anakin was created by Darth Plagueis as well, or Anakin was, they suspect a virgins in the Force, which is short for convergence, not virgin as in like virgin birth, like Jesus. Like convergence is in like
that too.
That's why even in episode 1 they state it like it's centered around this boy, because a virgins can be centered around a person or an object or a planet or something like that. So it's basically the Force coming together in a big way in one spot, whether it's a living thing or a location like the cave on Dagobah, for instance. So I was like, oh, is that one of these things? But it sounds like it's more like, the Darth Plagueis thing where life was created, right? Which is as far as we know in Star Wars canon, a decidedly dark side thing. So we don't get the impression that this coven of witches is like, great, but at the same time, their leader seems very benevolent, to the extent that she lets the Jedi in, she lets it anyway.
But anyway,
there's
it is about, fundamentally, this is about, the oppression of the system on people who are just kind of trying to chill and live their lives, Doa, and have families. And by the way, there's just a bunch of nonsense in here. So first off, it is implied that the Jedi would find something sinister here eventually about how the twins were created, which is like obviously not great if we're supposed to have sympathy for these like witch characters. But also, they come in and they react very hostily to the Jedi. The Jedi are like, "Are you training children? Isn't that what the Jedi do? Am I missing something here? Don't they literally train children? Isn't that what they do?"
I think the issue here is that the how I understand it is that the Jedi Order created and existed for a long time as a way to make sure that Force users were trained in a way that they didn't go dark side, which, as we know, didn't always work out. But for the most part, it kept everyone on, the side of good, so that's why they were so interested in making sure to find all the children early on to make sure that they didn't get trained in the wrong way, I guess. But at the same time, I feel like this loses some sympathy we could have had for the witches too, when we're shown that May is kind of like always a psychopath from the very beginning.
Let it go, May. Stop!
So it's like, that doesn't, because so this the way they've written it kind of put themselves in a corner where they can't. I don't think Lucasfilm is going to make them make the Jedi the bad guys, but at the same time, they want their coven, where their main characters are coming from, to also have tendencies we're supposed to like sympathy for them. So we kind of get a weird mishmash where it's like, again, like Osha's
but it
obviously
doesn't work thematically. Like they're basically trying to say like, oh, these people are being oppressed and they just want to live their own lives on their own planet with their own people. And like, I'm like, okay, but we don't get the sense that the Jedi are bad. In fact, they go there. There's implications that the Coven is doing very bad things, to be clear. Right. And then also on top of that, they immediately act by like mind controlling the Jedi, who are not doing anything wrong, who are just trying to talk to them. And then the Jedi are just like, can we give you a test? And like, you don't have to come with us if you don't want to. And, Osha chooses to go, and then they flip out and everybody dies. Right. And like, it's hard to believe that the Jedi, who are so calm in this situation, and if anything, it is actually the Force Witches that are being super hostile and weird.
That marking, it wasn't there this morning.
You're spying on us? They want to take our children!
The Jedi do not take children.
Hold your tongue or I cut it out for you!
It's hard to believe that there would be some sort of random atrocity, like Torben's just there like murdering people for no reason. You know what I mean? And then he later has to commit suicide over it. Like, I don't really
That's what they should have done, though. That's what they should have done if they really wanted there to be and I think that would have been considered too bold of a direction to take this show, unfortunately, where you do have some Jedis that really do go kind of off the rail in this situation where, there's a misunderstanding or some sort of accident or something and the violence spirals out of control. That would be like, I think a much cooler backstory. And I do like the dynamic of that the Force will kind of like spring into Force sensitive people will just be kind of born everywhere, in all these different situations, right? And not all of them would want to be part of the Jedi. I like that exists in the Star Wars universe, and I like that there's this sort of conflict where these people do just kind of want to do the Force thing in their own way, and they don't want the Jedi to mess with them, but the Jedi feel obligated to intercede because they're so worried about the damage bad Force wielder can do that they feel obligated to go out and find these children and put a stop to this. So both sides have legitimate reasons to do what they want to do, and I feel like we were so close to getting that explained in this, and it was so close to being like a pretty good story, in itself, a little encapsulated story that it was, again, disappointing because I think there could have been something legitimately interesting there. I think, again, the seeds of an interesting story where both sides had interesting grievances with each other. You didn't have a clear hero and villain. And then as many, human interactions do across cultures, misunderstandings end up resulting in violence, end up resulting in much bigger problems than there would have needed to be otherwise. And that's how you create the crux of why May is out there killing Jedi, right? Because the Jedi did mess up on this planet and like they did kill people, but instead we got May just being a psychopath and starting a fire, and then I feel like the entire end of that episode just stumbled over the finish line where they're like, oh, writing, and oh shoot, we gotta have an ending, and then there was an explosion, everyone died. We're not really going to show the explosion very much. We're not really going to show, how people died. They're just going to be laying there, and we're going to just have Osha go off. Yeah. So it's like they got really lazy at the end of the episode with like the pinnacle of the episode. I was like, what are you doing? You could have had something. It could have been a contender for a good episode.
Let's talk about the writing too, because this has such gems of dialogue in it, such as the Jedi are good and the Jedi are bad. And then when the place is collapsing, we have two child actors that are terrible at acting, shouting at each other on a broken bridge.
I don't think they were that bad.
They were horrible. They are shouting at each other. They are terrible. They are shouting at each other on a broken bridge. What have you done? What have you done? What have you done? Just back and forth, over and over.
What have you done? What have you done? What have you done?
See, that as someone with 7 younger siblings, I feel like their behavior in that episode was very accurate to how siblings will interact with each other. I have younger twin sisters, actually, identical twin sisters, and I've seen fights that go pretty much exactly like that. Now, to be fair, it wasn't on a bridge in an exploding building. It was just like in a living room or something. But but the way they were shoving each other and stuff, and those two actors are sisters in real life too. And so I feel like we did get a good dose of genuine sibling bickering. So I kind of like that in the episode. I was like, oh, this actually reminds me of dumb little fights that I saw my younger siblings have,
It's the dialogue that is so terrible. The Jedi are good. The Jedi are bad. What have you done? What have you done? What have you done? What have you done? What have you done?
That's just like kids talk that way, though.
No,
kids talk like that.
It films very badly, DoA. It films very badly, and
I think it's not so much that in this case. I think it's not so much that it's the way everything was put together. So when those scenes happened, it just was ridiculous because doing that on a bridge is ridiculous. Doing that in a different situation can work.
Also, we have no idea what this culture is. So the ascension that they're supposed to go through, we don't know what it is, and it ends up being
You got a cool tattoo, man.
And it ends up being meaningless. Yeah. And also, DoA, let's talk about the chant scene, which is easily the worst Star Wars scene of all time. Where they
hey, if they got their chant, whatever, more power to them.
It is horribly shot. It looks incredibly fake. It is hilariously bad, the chants that they are doing.
The power of one, the power of two, the power of many.
Well, another thing that doesn't really engender much sympathy for these characters because it has a very creepy vibe to all of it too. So again, I'm watching this and I'm like, I feel like I'm on Team Jedi here, actually. You know, like I think that the Jedi did nothing wrong, you know, but like it's because yeah, the way it's shot, it's kind of horror movie-esque, you know, a little bit. So if you're gonna do that kind of thing and you're gonna try to make this like a wholesome coven and you're gonna make it be all about love and being, you know, by yourself and all that, then sure, it can be witches, but like there were witches in Harry Potter that weren't creepy, you know? There were many that were, but there were also many that were very friendly people. So why can't you shoot this in a way that makes them look like a loving community that the Jedi are, you know, that the Jedi are interrupting, right? Wouldn't that make more sense for the drama you're trying to write here?
It's terrible.
Wouldn't it?
I mean, the whole episode doesn't feel like Star Wars. It feels so far removed from the very themes of Star Wars. Like, I mean, it just goes back to why do people come to Star Wars, right? Because they want, you know, a larger than life fantasy narrative. And what we get is like the Jedi interacting with an unsympathetic cult that is trying to make us think that the Jedi are bad, but actually fails in its entire attempt to do so.
From my point of view, the Coven are evil.
They are. They are. They're like trying to prevent people from leaving. They are a cult that is trying to keep its members at any and all costs. And when people are offering a way out, that is seen as threatening, and they are told, you know what cults do? Oh yeah, just lie to the outsider, right? Lie to the outsider, because if you tell the truth and you actually realize that there is something else beyond this life that you're living right now, you may want to leave. Weird, shocking.
I don't know what they will ask you, but whatever's in your heart, you must say the opposite.
If we pass, they take us away. We never see Mama again.
But you know, again, you had like this shows a lot of setup without payoff. Where let's look at the family drama specifically with Osha and May and her parents, right? Where one parent, you know, is very sad about Osha wanting to leave, but ultimately is willing to allow her to do that because she loves her daughter. The other parent is completely unwilling, right? You've got May, who's like, you know, a psychopath who, you know, is right on the verge of starting to rip the wings off butterflies and stuff. That's real serial killer stuff, by the way. And her sister seems just like a good, normal kid who wants to go hang out with other normal kids. And so you've got that family dynamic, which again, if played in the right way, would make like a really great heartbreaking episode where, oh, you know, the mom is letting her child go, even though it's very painful. Oh, how could the Jedi do this? You know, this kind of thing. You know, you could have achieved the drama the way you wanted to, but instead we just got an explosion and everyone died. The end. Like it's, you know, it just stumbles across the finish line. Set up. Oh, this is an interesting family dynamic. You know, the conflict between the spouses, conflict between the kids. Oh, just explosion. So it's just lazy. It's lazy. Why do we have to do it that way? Why can't we get a good dramatic payoff in the writing? I don't know. Look forward to episode 4, maybe. I'm not gonna hold that up. So for flashback number 2, this should have been episode 1. It should have been episode 1 because all the stuff that would have made us care about the characters that died is in this episode. You know, it should have been the first episode.
What's your rating on this show, DoA, out of 10 lightsabers?
Out of 10 lightsabers, I'm gonna give it like a I'll give it like a 3. I'll give it a 3.
I'm
And I'll
gonna
give it. Let me explain my reasoning. I'll give it a 3 because Book of Boba Fett would have a 2 out of 10 lightsabers. And the reason that neither of these have a 1 is because I sadly do not believe we have seen the worst that Star Wars can offer yet. I believe that worse Star Wars content is coming. And it's probably going to star Jude Law. But we'll see. We'll see. No shade towards Jude Law. I like him as an actor, but
he's great.
Good luck on that ship full of kids later in 2024.
Skeleton Crew is what he's referring to, guys.
Yes.
Which we'll also talk about on this show whenever it decides to embarrass itself on our screens.
If the Lucasfilm assassin androids don't get to us first.
I am rating this a lightsaber hilt out of 10. So like 1/3 of a lightsaber.
Oh.
Yeah. 1/3 of a lightsaber.
Which hilt?
I don't know. Luke's Return of the Jedi lightsaber, whatever.
Oh, that was a cool lightsaber hilt. Why you got to do that lightsaber hilt dirty?
No,
like that?
So the reason why
what about Yoda's tiny lightsaber hilt from Clone Wars?
Why it gets 1/3 of a lightsaber out of 10 is because I was entertained for the first 5 minutes of this in that cool sequence with Carry-On and Moss fighting, and then it was just incredible shit from that point forward. It was boring. The pacing is terrible. Half of the scenes don't even need to exist. The dialogue is bad. The acting is bad for the most part, especially with the main characters. It tries to be thematically interesting and relevant into the modern into the modern world, and it just isn't those things whatsoever. It doesn't make me question anything about the modern world. In fact, I think its attempts at having a deeper meaning actually just backfire on itself, which is crazy that it could do that.
When it's done in a ham-fisted way where it's very obvious to the point where it feels almost pandering, that is where that goes wrong in science fiction, I think. On top of that, when that element of it, like we said, undermines the story that they're trying to tell, you got some big problems. And I don't know if these are problems that can be recovered from, but we got 5 episodes to do it. So let's go. Let's go.
This show is unbelievable trash.
You want to talk about the big bad guy? Remember?
Oh yeah, who's like, you are the acolyte, and then I didn't care.
Jedi don't use weapons except when they do, and don't die to other steel except when they do, and they'll tell you things. And
if you attack a Jedi with a weapon, you will fail. Steel or laser are no threat to them.
Like, the guy's just on the beach rambling. I don't even know what this guy's talking about, because basically everything he says so far has been like proven wrong in the show. So are we supposed to look at this and be like, oh, this guy's just an idiot? Or is this going to be some big reveal? Oh, let's make some great predictions, Monty. Let's predict which one of the main characters the bad guy is. The big bad guy is. I guarantee you. Because imagine trying to introduce a new big bad guy into this series, unless episode 4 is going to be about bringing May over to light side, and then they have to team up to fight the bad guy. That is a sad possibility that I think is quite likely. But who do you think it is?
I think it's the horrible Wookiee Jedi Master who actually, as long as he's wearing a mask, can speak normally.
That'd be funny. I think it's really big. I like that. I like that prediction, though. I think it is very obviously the angry mom. Not the nice mom, the angry mom. Because the angry mom was a Zabrak, which is the same race as Darth Maul, right?
It's from Dathomir. She's actually from Dathomir.
Oh, there you go. And so that helmet as well has like little horns around the outside and all that. I'm guessing the red lightsaber wielding Sith, whatever, is angry mom, not nice mom. That's my guess.
Coral, I think her name was.
Coral? Oh, okay.
Coral, yeah.
Anyway, I'm just going to call her Angry Mom.
Angry Mom, I think it's a great theory. Though.
Angry Mom and Nice Mom. That's what we're going to remember.
The great mystery of this show. But this show is terrible. You should watch our show because hopefully we make it funny for you to laugh at this. But like, it is incredibly bad. I feel so sad, though.
Why?
Because, you know what? The Star Wars games have actually been very good recently. I really like, Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor were like pretty good Star Wars games. Like I had some issues with the second game, and I thought it was
I'm
pretty
playing through the first one now.
Yeah, the villain in the second one is pretty ham-fisted, I will say that. But there are some cool characters in there, and you could see a Force Witch done very well, which is Merrin, and Merrin's a very interesting character in my opinion. So those are fun games, and it really is the games that have been carrying Star Wars for a long time. By the way, DoA, they have now greenlit a Knights of the Old Republic TV series, so we get to see them ruin that, which is one of the best all-time plot lines in Star Wars.
Just please just do the story. Just do the story of the game. Nobody's played that game in like 20 years. Nobody's gonna remember. Just do the story of the game. Please don't try to like make other main characters. Don't try to make like side characters the main characters. Don't do the Wheel of Time thing. Just make a show of the story. Otherwise, why are you doing it?
And honestly, that game has one of my favorite plot twists in media of all time.
Yeah, of course. It is great. It is great. So do that. Please just do that. Don't spoil. Well, I wonder if Nice Mom is going to come back. Oh no, wait, she's dead. Or is she? No one's ever really gone in Star Wars, though. We learned that in whatever episode 9 was called. I can't remember anymore.
I haven't seen it. I refuse to watch that one. So anyway, this show is just really super bad. Next week, we are going to be doing The Boys, the new season of The Boys. So we'll start off with that. I like the first 2 seasons of The Boys. It went downhill pretty fast towards the end of season 3. So let's just say I'm not really excited about this, but
I've never been a big fan of that show, but yet it keeps me watching. So I'll be curious to see what my reaction for that. Oh, one last little acolyte thing. Remember the character I talked about, the potion maker or whatever, Kamir? Turns out on IMDb it says he's only in 1 episode. So or maybe they mean he's only in 1 episode so far. No. We have other things where people are in more episodes. So I guess we're just never going to find out any more about that character. So bummer. Oh, did you see, by the way, on Rotten Tomatoes that this show has like a 90% critic score and like a 27% audience score?
I don't know how you could possibly like this show. It is so bad.
I don't know. I mean, who, like, is this person is a creator of the show? Like Leslie Headland is her name. Is she just like really influential behind the scenes or something? Does she have like dirt on a bunch of these critics? Like, what's going on? Because like I've never seen such a gigantic disparity between critic score and audience score, where at 27%, I mean, I think we can say it's pretty universally not great. IMDb rating is 4.1 out of 10 right now. So the viewers of this show, no matter how many views it ends up getting, the viewers are not really enjoying it. And yet the critics seem to almost universally love it. So what is going on over there in Hollywood that this happens? I'll leave that to you, the viewers at home, to decide.
All right, guys. That'll do it for this week for Nerd Legion. Next week, The Boys. And then House of the Dragon. So we might just got a lot of garbage this month.
Well, you guys enjoy soaking it all up. You will eat our you will listen. You are basically receiving our regurgitated garbage. We take in the garbage, and then, like loving parental birds, we give you back the digested results.
Truly, so our fans, DoA, are the end of the human centipede.
I think they're more our baby birds. You got to put a positive spin on it, especially if we start a Patreon or something at some point. You got to make them feel good about it, right? We are baby birds.
We suffer so you don't have to. And
That's
hopefully you laugh at the funny clips and then don't actually watch the content. So there you go. Thank you, End of the Human Centipede, for watching this content. We will see you for The Boys next week.